Hey folks, welcome y'all to the Kilted Cavalry Saloon. Hope you're all doing very well. What will you be having? Same as me, whiskey, because it's all we got. Hope you're all doing very well. I hope you like this new surrounding. Of course, this is all to help with the ambience of what we're about to discuss now, which is, of course, 2017's revisionist, gritty, dark, character-based Western, Hostiles, written and directed by Scott Cooper. Written and directed with the whole idea of getting fabulously intense British actor Christian Bale on board to play the lead character, the hard-bitten, frontier experienced, highly decorated Indian fighter and Civil War veteran, Captain Joseph Blocker. Now, the whole idea behind this movie was to analyse, dissect and explore man's fascination and determination to commit violence upon his fellow man, and how this translates to different people, different characters, how they deal with it, how people who've served a life of absolute violence finally find some form of reconciliation, maybe some sort of repatriation to their long misbegotten humanity. Sounds very grim, doesn't it? And indeed it is. That's the whole bloody point of it. What this is all about, Captain Blocker, he's come up for retirement. Aren't they always? It's at one last mission. Well, yes, he's got one last mission. It's 1892. This is the end of the Indian Wars. In fact, the Indian Wars have ended a few years before, but down in New Mexico, you've still got bands of Apaches who are fleeing from the reservations, and Captain Blocker's job, and he takes great pleasure in it, is rounding them up, being a badass to them and flinging them back on the reservations, and those that fight back end up in the stockade in the fort down in New Mexico. And he's quite happy doing this, and he's coming to the end of his tether anyway when it comes down to his career. But he's given one last mission, right? He's got to take an old arch enemy, Yellow Hawk, played by, wait for it, Wes Studi. Wes Studi, yes, Magua from Last of the Mohicans, one of the screen's greatest, most horrendously nightmarish villains ever. And of course, he's a very, very famous Native American actor, an activist as well, and a fabulous character actor anyway. He plays the cancer-ridden, dying old war chief of the Cheyenne, Yellow Hawk, who with his family has been in the stockade for 7 years now. The presidential decree, they have now decided that he served his time. Let him go back to his old hunting ground, his old sacred lands, the Valley of the Bears up in Montana. That's where, look, take your family with you, go up there. God go with you. And he wants Blocker to take him up there under escort, make sure he gets there safely. Blocker, of course, does not want to do this. These two are old rivals, enemies. They've fought each other before. They have both witnessed and perpetrated atrocities upon each other's people. Blocker's lost men. He's seen massacres. He's seen mutilations. He has acted these sort of things on Yellow Hawk's people himself. He's been at Wounded Knee, the big massacre at Wounded Knee. Him and his men have done untold violence upon the Native American people and enjoyed doing it. And now he's got to take an age-old enemy back home peacefully. This doesn't sit well with Blocker. How is he going to do this? But he will, because if he doesn't do it, he'll be court-martialed. So with a little punitive patrol, they will take Yellow Hawk and his people, his sons, his daughters and their husbands and wives and their kids. A ragtag band are going to make it through the Badlands all the way to Montana. Now, I've worked it out. That's actually 1,100 miles of rough country that they've got to do. But Blocker knows all this. Blocker knows these paths, these mountain trails, these valleys. He's fought long and hard, you know, many, many years. A career soldier. En route, they will meet poor Rosamund Pike. Rosamund Pike, who in the opening of the movie witnesses the slaying of her entire family. They're out on a frontier lodge, and a horrible band of Comanche dog soldiers lay siege to their farmstead, killing everybody, including her baby. She alone survives that, and in the burnt out wreckage of her farmstead, Captain Blocker and his men will find her, and she will be taken on board their ragtag patrol, and onwards they will go. They will encounter murderers. They will encounter the Comanche dog soldiers. They'll encounter those. Battles will ensue. They will encounter all sorts of depravity and horrific landscape, weather, on this odyssey to take them up to Montana. Not everyone's going to make it. In fact, very few people are going to make it all the way there. You know me, folks, I tend to go very, very in-depth in movie reviews. But being as this is only relatively recent for a film that I'm reviewing, I'm going to try not to give too many spoilers away. But you know me, they're bound to just leak out anyway. I sweat spoilers. But I'm going to try not to. But this is a film like Joe Carnahan's great modern classic, The Grey. You know, all set up, you know, in the Alaskan wilderness. The plane crash crew are being picked off by the wolves one by one, and it's a very bleak, depressing movie, very moody, very dark, very nihilistic. That is a treatise on death. Very similar. Hostiles is just as dark, just as grim, just as unforgiving. But unlike The Grey, there is hope in this. There is the hope of redemption. There's a hope of repatriation. Enemies perhaps seeing each other for what they really are. We're all humans. We're all in this environment together. We may have to band together and forget our differences. That's what it's all about. This is what the whole film is all about. How we deal with violence. Bringing on board Christian Bale and Wes Studi is a stroke of genius. I will say that Wes Studi's character of Yellowhawk, Chief Yellowhawk, aged, dying, is only a supporting character. Although you'll see him on all the posters, Christian Bale, Wes Studi, opposed to each other. But really Wes Studi, although he is a linchpin to how the plot unfolds, to how characters change and alter their perceptions of each other and their environments and the entire campaigns they've waged the war throughout their entire lives about. He is the linchpin of that, but he's not in the film a great deal. He doesn't say a great deal. Then again, he doesn't need to. Those solemn, soul-filled eyes convey so much. And it's about the eyes I'm going to come on to next, because the real stroke of genius is getting Christian Bale. Christian Bale has only ever put his foot wrong once, as far as I'm concerned, and that was Terminator Salvation, which was a complete tear of a film in every aspect. But in everything else, Christian Bale is an acting masterclass. He has such intensity. Sometimes it's outrage, it's anger, it's fury. In The Dark Knight, it'll be extolled in violence and, you know, complete and utter justified, you know, vengeance. But oftentimes it's quiet, stoic resolve, as you'll find here. He's a man of unparalleled violence, but you don't really see much of that in the film. But his eyes, again, convey so much. Initially, he has to go out into the desert, and in the silent, but the film, the moment is in silence, but he is screaming at the sky, screaming at the heavens that he's got to go and take an arch enemy, happily to his, you know, his old homestead, you know, up in the Valley of the Bears. Doesn't want to do it. Why am I going to do this? Why me? Me and him are arch enemies. Why me? And he knows it's going to destroy his soul So he screams at the heavens later on as they first move out and they get just out of eyesight of the fort. He stops the patrol and he wants all these Indians to have their braids released. Now that's blasphemy to an Indian, to a Native American. Their braids are the source of their spirit, their power, their complete character and identity. To remove them is an outrage and an insult. So he does that on purpose. He also claps them in irons. And I'm talking like proper old school, chains with a big lock and pin and bolt on them. And he makes his corporal, Henry, who was a black man, he makes him put the chains on the Indians. And of course, there's a moment there where Henry puts the chains on, and the hidden agenda. We've had the Civil War. He's a corporal, he's a black man. He knows about chains and subservience and slavery and to be subjugated by the whites. He understands that. But the clever thing here is that, as you will find out, Christian Bale's character, Captain Blocker, and Henry are best friends. And there's a very, very tearful farewell between the two of them later in the movie, which really brings this home to you. That Blocker, despite what you think is his intolerance and his hatred for these ethnic races, these minorities, which the whites, in their drive for supremacy over this new world, have driven out and subjugated and committed genocide upon, he's not actually like that, because his respect for Henry shows this. He just fights an enemy that if that enemy subjects his men to torture and mutilation, that's going to make him. It doesn't matter what colour their skin is, it doesn't matter who they are. If they do that kind of barbarity to his men, he will reenact that upon them. So his hatred is not born out of a racial intolerance, although it does manifest itself like that, like with the entire US Army mandate to wipe these people out. But that's not where he's coming from. And this is what you'll find out. The reason why he gives, it's not, oh, Henry, you put chains on him because you know what it feels like. It's just, no, Henry, I trust you. You're one of my best men, my best friends. You're focused. You're always professional. You never let me down. These are lines which he will say in the very tearful farewell he will give to Henry later in the movie. And this movie is an odyssey. You will feel that journey that these people go on, this humongously long journey. They will also make deviations to other forts. Some men will be lost in battles, and then he'll get new men, and you'll get to know those. You'll get to know Ben Foster, the great Ben Foster, who plays a murderous madman who is... Paul Blocker then gets tasked with, no, do us a favour. When they've dropped Henry off at another fort because Henry's been badly injured and he won't make the journey, so they're going to have to leave him behind. And of course, that's the tearful farewell I was telling you about. So, but can you do us a favour? Can you take this guy back to Fort Pearson? Why? He's a murderer and he's deserted from there, so they want him back there to be hanged. And it's Ben Foster's character. And of course, Ben Foster's character and Joseph Blocker have served together. They both know Major Reno and what was General, then became Colonel Custer. So Custer gets name dropped again, and it's a lovely moment. This guy has taken an axe and killed many people in a Jack Torrance style, bloodbath. But as he says to Blocker, you know me, I never killed anyone that didn't deserve to die. You and me, we've both fought, we've done things. You could just as easily, they've got him chained to a tree while they're camped somewhere out in the woods. It could easily just be you chained to this tree as well, for the things that you've done. And so we're getting to know that Blocker has done some really terrible things. Initially, he seemed proud of those things because it was in a just cause, and he's fought that cause with a vengeance. But you gradually begin to see him soften throughout this journey. They'll have to band together against this band of Comanches. Comanches, by the way, the term dog soldiers, which was often applied to the Comanche Nation, before horses became widely used, for actual riding or for carrying equipment and tools and helping people travel from one place to another. The Comanches used dogs, big dogs, and they would pack them up like mules. So they became the dog people because they used dogs like other people used horses. But then when they got the horses, they formed their own warlike community called dog soldiers, and they were particularly vicious. They were not liked by other Indian nations like the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Apache. Did not like the Comanche because of the things that they did. Even by their style, they'd attack other Indians as well. So these are the bad guys of the piece. And of course the Cheyenne family will have to band with the cavalry to fight these people off, because they will encounter them again. Rosamund Pike is outstanding. You'd think this would be a cliched character, and in fact it possibly is in many ways, but the loss that she feels for her family, her two daughters, the baby, who I'm not sure whether it was a boy or a girl, I don't know, and her husband, who is killed with arrows and scalped in the opening sequence. She will then despise Indians and fear them, but she'll gradually come to understand that this particular family and are friendly. They may have done things in the past. Yellow Hawk makes no bones about the fact that he has been a killer, a warrior, a chief, a warring chief, but he's done so for the right reasons. Everyone's done things for the right reasons, but they've done terrible things. Rosamund's Pike character will learn she'll have to fight, she'll have to find some inner strength. She will also, along with Chief Yellowhawk, bring out the humanity which Blocker has been keeping reserved in a deep dark place inside his soul. Blocker will lose another best friend of his, another valiant soldier who was fought alongside him. And this guy, right at the very start, when you first meet Blocker, you'll hear this guy say, "Look, I think it's over for me now. I've got, what do they call it, that melancholy." Blocker's like, "No, you haven't. Don't worry about that. It's nothing. It's nothing." But he has. He will fight bravely as well, but he will go on his own sort of wayward odyssey of self-realization and self-annihilation as well. All the characters in this, there's a lot of characters, they are finely tuned, finely drawn, and expertly portrayed. The film is harrowing, exceptionally moving, stunningly beautiful to look at. The cinematography is absolutely to die for. The westerns, they tend to be. You're playing with that majestic landscape. Although they make the way in the film from New Mexico all the way to Montana. In reality, a lot of it, most of it's filmed in New Mexico and Colorado. And what stands in for the Valley of Bears in Montana is actually Colorado. But, takes nothing away from that absolutely jaw-dropping landscape. And to see this little patrol across one ridge line, and the camera pans back to see further mountains and canyons and just forested, and the sunset way millions of miles in the background. Your jaw is on the floor. It's just incredible, so beautiful. I'm playing Max Richter's score for Hostiles right now. This is the battle sequence. Don't go thinking that this is an action film. It is not. It is not. There is violence here. There are gunfights here. Not many in a long film, and they are not. We're not talking, John Wick style here on horses, but with 6 shooters. No, that's not the case. They're done in a realistic fashion, lightning bolt quick, and people don't die spectacularly. They'll fall over. That's it. They're gone. But it's dramatic and it's frightening when the attacks do take place. But it's a film about violence, but doesn't always show you the violence. It might show you the aftermath. It might show you the effects that this violence has had upon certain characters, but it doesn't always show you what takes place. One pivotal scene later on is exactly what I'm talking about, where the women will later on in another environment be subjected and abused by other people. A vengeance spree then from the righteous, the Indians and the cavalry will band together to fight and do what's right. Righteous justice. But you won't see it. You'll hear it, but you won't see it. And that's the thing about this film. The whole story revolves around violence and its effects upon people. But it doesn't have to show you it, and you don't need to see it. There'll be people out there who, they're waiting for the battle, the gunfight, the massacre, the whatever, and they're not going to get it. It's not that kind of film. It is not that kind of film. Even though it literally, it totally, chronicles the effects of all these deeds of nastiness on the frontier. Cheers, y'all. But Max Richter's score. Remember the film, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford? And its slow, elegiac, character-building mood. This film, alongside The Grey, with its nihilistic, grim reality and dark sense of inexorable foreboding. Hostiles and The Grey are similar. Hostiles and The Assassination of Jesse James is very similar again in its slow, elegiac build and momentum. And both Hostiles and Assassination share a final sequence set to absolutely the most rapturous music, a church organ used by Max Richter here. In Assassination, it is The Assassination of Jesse James, it's that sequence. But in this Hostiles, I won't say what it is, but it's a finale, and it's a moment of realization and a choice that Blocker will make, which is going to change everything for him and for a couple of other characters. And it's a beautiful moment. It's a long moment stretched out, and it just, if you can hear that now, that is when the patrol finally get to the Valley of Bears, and Yellowhair, that's Custer, Yellowhawk is not a well man, but he's finally seeing his home again, and he says it's never looked more beautiful. The moments of him and Blocker at the end of a certain person's life are incredibly touching and emotional, and this is where Wes Studi comes to the fore again. Without doing much, he gives so much. Just listen to that. I saw this film at the Flicks when it first came out. I was one of 3 people in the cinema watching it. That didn't bother me. I'd be happily to sit there on my own. But then I discovered I was also the only person other than those other people that had seen it. Nobody I knew had seen it, and I was promoting it and bigging it up, and people said, doesn't sound very exciting. And here I am doing it now. You might wonder, in the last few days, last few reviews, I've reviewed The Keep, I've reviewed Masks, I've done some silly spoof videos. Why did I suddenly pick on this film again? And there is a reason, which I'm not going to go into right now, but Westerns are going to really appeal to me at the moment. And there's a few more Western reviews going to be coming your way. People go, oh God. Hence all this stuff. But there is a very valid reason for it, which I will tell you, but not just yet. But back on Montana, I've been around the world, a good couple of times. I've seen many battlefields. I've seen many great historical sites. The one place that I've lived my life waiting to go and see, and I've talked about it a lot, and you know what my fascination with it. I'm wearing the U.S. Cavalry belt buckle here. Is the Little Bighorn, the greasy grass, where Custer bit the dust. And I've discussed it a lot. Me and Mrs. Kilt-Man are going there, but I'm deliberately leaving it as long as possible, because what she doesn't know is that for me, it's a one-way ticket. I won't be coming back from there. I'm telling you guys that now, but hey, mum's the word. But it's a place which is in me, and since I was my earliest memories are of Errol Flynn playing Custer in They Die With Their Boots On, and it had such a profound effect upon me that I can't let it go, you know, and it's obsessed. I've been obsessed with it all my life, but I know that's it. Once I go there, that is it. There's spiritual reasons for this as well. not just this kind of spirit, or any of these. Back to Hostiles then. Wonderful direction from Scott Cooper. He knows how to use his cast, and his cast really do buy into this saga. Rosamund Pike, when interviewed, because on the Blu-ray disc of it, there's some great, you know, making of, a 3-part vast making of, and you can see she is very emotional when she talks about it. It really struck her, you know, and she gets very tearful, and it's not just for the camera. She really is, you know, overawed by the whole story. I love westerns. I love revisionist westerns. I love the classic westerns. I love the cliched ones. Your John Wayne stuff, you know, your John Ford westerns, your spaghetti westerns in particular. I adore, and anything with US cavalry in it. But my heart, as I've always said, lies on both sides of that divide. I mean, I was going to put my Lakota Sioux hawk feathers in my hair, but anyway, I haven't done that because I sit on both sides of the fence. You know, the cavalry jackets, the Sioux feathers. I understand the politics was completely wrong, but the soldiers do their job, and this is what the film's about. People doing their job. Native Americans fighting for their lives and their livelihood and their customs and traditions and their land. The white soldiers doing their job. The politics don't come into it to them. And that conflict both inflict horrific atrocities upon each other. And this film details how they have to get over that. As Scott Cooper says, it didn't even have to be the American West. You could have set it in, you know, the fields of France, World War II, World War One. It could have been Waterloo. It could have been Vietnam. It could have been anywhere. It could be Afghanistan. It doesn't matter. It's enemies who their hostility has run its course, and in the end, they probably have a stronger bond with each other than with their own best friends. And that's what you'll find in life as well. Your enemy, if you have any enemy, you have a stronger connection to them than you do to your own best friend. It's a weird thing. And enemies who end up fighting, you know, in wars, that's even more prevalent. You're both driven by the same thing. That hatred goes so far that in the end you are together. You're not divided, you are exactly the same. And that's what Scott Cooper's film is trying to describe and observe. Hostiles, mate, is a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's not a fun time, and at the end, you know, a lot of sacrifices will have been made, and there's a hell of a body count. You'll be surprised. For a film that doesn't really have big battles in it, there's a lot of people bite the dust in this. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. It takes a huge bite out of your time to watch, savour and enjoy, but it's well worth it. It's very rewarding. Wes Studi, Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, outstanding performances. Max Richter's score, the cinematography, this is what makes it. It transports you there. Ben Foster, an evil man, and yet you understand him as well. Everybody has their reasons. Everybody has a chip on their shoulder, a grudge, a vengeance. But everyone is doing things that they have to in order to survive. And the things that they're doing, the life that they've got has been shaped by circumstance. Everybody is, as Christian Bale will say early on, when we lay our heads down here, when we lay our heads down out here, we're all prisoners. Folks, I did really well there. Massively spoiler free. That's got to be a first for me. Folks, take it easy. Be happy, be healthy. Keep it kilted, keep it Celtic. And keep stum about Montana a little bit on. Happy trails, folks. Hope you like this. See y'all later on, somewhere down the trail.